Hello and welcome back to Talk About Strange. I have phenomenal news for you guys today. Shortly after posting that video about Raven, the Immortal and the Bigfoot, she decided to go ahead and write back to us. So I just received yesterday a message back from her. And I think you guys are going to really enjoy this because this one is directly to you guys. So this is in direct response to the comments that you guys made. So I'm really excited about this. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Now, don't forget also, keep in mind that on Sunday, we'll be doing our live TAS show and we get to talk about this stuff. That's going to be the live TAS podcast show. And I'll put that up under my live streaming playlist. So you guys can go to that if you do happen to miss the live show and watch it. Cabal, make sure you're there on Sunday, my friend. So let's get going with the show and the story here. And I'll share this message with you guys. All right, here we go. Dearest Steve, hello, I hope you are doing well. I watched a video you created about my life a couple days ago. You did such a wonderful job. I really appreciate your openness and respect while sharing my journey. After reading some of the comments, I felt I owed it to your TAS family to follow up and try to answer some of those questions. Though I have to use caution to protect other immortals and not to share details that could possibly threaten their existence, as they do walk cautiously amongst you. There are fewer, it seems, than there once was. Still, probably more than you would expect. Most of us have a lot of unanswered questions about our experience, and we continue to search for answers, only learning small details about ourselves throughout the centuries. Interesting. With that said, if you don't mind, I'd like to try and answer some of the questions that you and your friends have asked. I'll start by saying I admire the loyalty, respect, and willingness to protect each other in this TAS family you have. Thank you. I can see why you admire them so much, as you have built a wonderful little community. I want you to know this is my first time sharing anything about myself on social media. Interesting. While it's a wonderful concept, it's also highly monitored and can be very dangerous to someone like myself. I realize you all have a lot of questions, so I'll answer as many as I can, trying not to make this too long. We have plenty of time, and I have a lot of stories to share with you whenever the opportunity arises. I'll start with your friend, JJ Paulson, the Lionist. I like that. I say that because I admire your willingness to protect your pride, aka Steve and your TAS family. As I said before, I mean no disrespect by the things I say. I am merely sharing my story. I'm not asking you to believe it, rather inviting you to take the journey with me. JJ, you mentioned that a man would be happy to be married to a young woman, and you would be correct in most cases. But in my particular case, I married a man in a small town near Salem, Massachusetts, just 20 years before the Salem witch trials in 1692. At the time we were married, I claimed to be 36 years old, and my new husband was 40 years old. You know a lot about the horrible things that happened leading up to the Salem witch trials. By now, my 40-year-old husband had become a 60-year-old man with a bad hip and gray hair. Though I still loved him just as much as I did the day we wed, I still looked 36. And even though he was an absolutely brilliant and wonderful man, the fear-mongering rumors about witches spread like the plague. And so, amongst several of the rumors, they claimed witches to be immortals. My youth began to draw suspicion, and his fear overcast his love for me. Soon it became hard for him to look me in the eyes. He started sleeping at a distance, until one day he actually slept out in the barn. My better judgment told me it was time to leave, but I loved him too deeply to see clear. I decided my last hope was to tell him the truth and pray he loved me enough to believe me. It took some time, but I thought we had made it through. He started sleeping next to me again, and things started to feel better. But something remained in his eyes when he looked at me. More than a year had passed and the public trials had ended, but the fear trials amongst people and families before the public ones and lasted longer after. One day in 1965, in a pub, my husband confided in a friend he knew from Salem. The friend still believed in witches. He told my husband if he loved me, he would test me to find out if in fact I was really a witch or just blessed with youth. He insisted that there is no such thing as immortals except in the Bible, and if I was an angel, then the Lord would surely spare me. He insisted the only way to be sure would be to drown me. As a witch, I would surely survive, but a mortal human would perish and be saved. He came home drunk and told me of this conversation. I begged him not to do it. I told him that this is wrong, that I'm not a witch, that if he does this, I will die and he will lose me for nothing. He cried and begged my forgiveness. The fear blinded his mind. So together they dragged me out into the pond in the back field, then holding my head underwater until my body went limp. Then returned me back up onto the ground and waited. I don't know how long I was unconscious, only that it was light and now it was dark. I awoke coughing and gagging and spitting out filthy water from the pond. I could feel the grit in my teeth from the mud at the bottom. Two of them staring at me across from a campfire. As I composed myself, I looked to my husband as he stepped back further away from me. What was once love and pain in his eyes then turned to fear and hatred. He pointed and choked out the words, "You are a witch," then asked me, "What curses have you put upon me?" I begged and pleaded with him that it's not true. Then his friend suddenly grabbed me from behind. They tied me up and brought me back to the barn, where they kept me until they could figure out what to do with me. They deprived me of food and water for several days. My husband couldn't even look at me in the eyes. On the fourth day, they led me out to the field and bound me to a post they had set in the ground. It was surrounded by wood and straw. This is where I was to be burnt alive for being a witch. Soon they came out of the barn with flaming sticks wrapped in oil-soaked rags. The time for begging and pleading had passed. I needed a new strategy, so instead I played upon their fears. I looked them straight in the eyes, masking my fear with anger. With every ounce of strength I could conjure, I lifted my body and neck and head as tall as I could appear, powerful and dangerous. I could see it was working as they both stopped and stared in fear. With conviction in my voice, I demanded, "If you burn me at the stake before I die, I will curse both of you and your families. Everyone in this town and their families will die at the most vile diseases you can imagine. Worms will crawl from your eyes and flies will fill your ears and mouth until you can't breathe, but you will still live until they finish consuming your body. You will still live until they finish consuming your body." Not a good thing. Now that I had their full attention, I told them, "I'll give you one chance. Release me now, and I will disappear from this land. Make your choice," I demanded. They stood staring at me with absolute terror in their eyes. His friend started to move a step closer to me, probably testing me. I wasn't sure what else I could do. So funny as it might sound, I started chanting an old Indian worship song I had remembered. Somehow it did it. My husband pulled him back and begged me to stop. So I did, as they retreated back to the barn, likely to discuss a new plan. My husband's friend came out. Only moments later, his friend was holding a knife. My husband ran back to the house and returned with our Bible in his hand. He said to me, "If we let you go, will you swear a blood oath on this Bible to never return? You swear you'll leave our families and people here in peace?" Of course, I said yes. Yeah, I can't say I blame you. So his friend went behind me and took my hand and used the knife to slice deep across my palm. My husband pressed it tight on the Bible, then asked me to swear these things, so I did. They took me off the post, wrapped me tight in horse blankets, and put me in the back of a covered wagon. They carried me clear out of Massachusetts, then dropped me on the ground, still tied up and wrapped in a blanket on the side of the road. I asked them to release me. His friend said a witch would surely be able to free herself. "Keep your oath, don't return, or next time we will burn you." I heard my husband say, "God forgive us," as they rode away. Eventually, an elderly couple did come along and unwrap and free me. They asked what happened. I told them I didn't know. I was taken during the night, tied up, wrapped in these blankets, and then left here to die. I thanked them for the help. They gave me food and water and even helped me clean and wrap my hand. I rode with them to the next town out of Massachusetts and haven't returned still to this day. Just a couple more items in response to JJ. I want you to know I am not trying to sound philosophical or wiser than others. This is just how I talk. Nor was I trying to butter Steve up. I was just expressing my admiration, the same admiration you obviously have. I think you sound like a wonderful person, JJ. I would never take it upon myself to judge you. I hope you would do the same for me. However, if you feel my stories are rubbish, I am perfectly fine with that. You wouldn't be the first and you won't be the last. Also, you questioned me stating that I've seen cities rise and fall. I'm sure you understand a city doesn't have to burn to the ground to fall. If you take into consideration things like the Great Depression, the Salem witch trials, and several other events where cities and towns have fallen to fear, politics, famine, and disease, not just flames. I wasn't in Boston in 1872 when it burnt down due to the promise I made prior. You know what I'm referring to, but I do remember it well through talk and newspaper articles with pictures. Okay, now she goes on to the mic. But first, I just want to touch on that. The Salem witch trials. I mean, wow. I mean, they were absolute brutal, horrible times. And these poor people that were persecuted, I mean, burned at the stake. I can't even imagine. But I heard a lot about that. My sister-in-law's a fan of the history behind it. Not a fan of what happened, but a fan of the history behind that. And but yeah, what amazing stuff. I can't imagine living during that time and seeing that stuff and what happened. It's just absolutely crazy. And then to be drowned. Now, I had heard about that before somewhere, that they would drown people to, if they were real, or if they weren't witches, they'd die. And if they were a witch, they'd live, which probably none of them did. So, well, except for maybe one. Wow, crazy stuff though. Wild. Okay, speaking to the mic, not this one. In your comment regarding a woman in Africa that hasn't eaten or drank anything in several years, I couldn't testify to whether or not it is completely true. However, like me, I believe it is possible. Her name is Muluwerk. She lives in Ethiopia. She's drawn quite a bit of attention from this. I only knew of her. It is interesting, though. I have never tried to purposely go without food or water so long. Probably because I enjoy both of them too much to sacrifice. Yeah, I get that. Except during the time that I was held against my will, my husband and his friend, I was not given food or water for quite some time. It was uncomfortable, but I don't believe I was going to perish anytime soon. The same for being drowned in the pond. I don't know if I merely pulled out of it or if it had something to do with immortality. I don't care to test the theory, though. Avalona Mists. Thank you for your compassion and condolences. It is true, I have lost several friends and lovers throughout the years, both male and female. I try not to allow a relationship to last more than a year, though there have been times they have lasted anywhere from 5 to 10 years, usually ending in death or the knowledge that I needed to move on before drawing attention. It's painful, but it's pain I must endure in order to protect the people I care about. You bring up hypnosis. The answer is yes. I have tried several methods, including hypnosis, but not limited to acupuncture, psychedelics, prayer, meditation, and in some situations, I have gotten answers. I believe I gained the most answers the psychedelic treatment I submitted myself to in Mexico. During that time, in the other plane, I found that what I believed to be memories going back into ancient times. I saw faces of people laughing and people crying. I saw cities burning. I saw forests. I don't know if this was just the psychedelics or if they were actual memories. I've taken little pieces of every event I've learned about myself and put them together the best I can, hoping that eventually I can create a map of my existence. I mentioned something in an earlier comment about I appear to age about a year through each century. By that calculation, if I was in my 30s in the 1480s, and today, if I'm in my 40s, so if I was in my 30s in the 1480s, and today I am in my early 40s, reversing that theory, I may have been born over 30 centuries ago. Whew. Wow. If this is true, my existence may have begun over 3,500 years ago, placing me in the Mesopotamian era. Or if I were born anywhere near Italy, it would possibly be during the Roman, possibly the Neurologic civilization era. I think I got that right. I do remember seeing fires and feeling the earth shake. I'm assuming it was brought on by an earthquake or volcanic activity. I've studied history and have come up with some conclusions. I say I'm not definite because a lot of things that I've seen no longer exist, at least not above ground. Okay, Marley, thank you for your kindness and compassion. I can tell that you too have an old soul. I wonder if you are in touch or aware of your previous lives. The peace and joy in your heart radiates. While it's likely not to happen, I can imagine sitting on a porch drinking a cup of sweet tea, enjoying a conversation with an old gal from Missouri. Neat. That'd be cool. All right. Mollis. Hello, friend from down under. It's been over 100 years since my last visit to Australia, though I would love to return someday. I miss its wild beauty, but most of all, I miss my Aboriginal friends, the First Nation people. If you have ever placed your hand on the great rock Uluru, then I guess you could say we've been connected as I have many times. After leaving Massachusetts, I made my way to New York City. From there, I traveled by ship to Great Britain. I visited many places. Eventually, I became a stowaway on a ship traveling for Australia. When we set sail, I wasn't aware of what would happen when I got there. It was around 1788 when the British invaded Australia, as I am sure you already knew. That's how I met the Aboriginal people. After finding out what was happening, I broke away from the people I'd traveled with to help those poor souls as they were being tortured, brutalized, and killed. I tried to do whatever I could medically and even stood my ground a couple of times to protect them against some of the people that I had traveled with. After things settled down, I left Australia. If memory serves me right, it was around 1802. From there, I made my way to Ireland, then Scotland, where I fell in love with one of the greatest men I've ever known to this day. Our relationship lasted about 10 years. My travels through Ireland and Scotland lasted about 20 altogether. Then it was time for me to move on yet again. I've seen many places since, but it's good to know that these wonderful, strong people still exist in Australia. Sally Smith. That's grand, laugh out loud. Yes, I have disguised myself on the occasion when necessary to escape a dangerous situation or area, even once for a reason I will get to a bit later. But no, I never disguised myself as the Count Germain, though I do believe I know who you are referring to, and I think he would get a laugh out of this as well. But it's not me. I like that you are a critical thinker, a gift that has likely brought you a long way in life. As for me, I do sometimes tend to be willy-nilly, as they say, but then when necessary, I can become a bit more of a critical thinker as well. I don't consider myself a superhero, though. I have tried to help people throughout my centuries, as much as I can. It took me a very long time to realize what I was, maybe too long. Though I don't regret any of the time that I had in that little village where Agnes found me. In regards to your red eyes, I have met people that have this trait. I don't know exactly what it is, but I believe it's brought up by adrenaline and raised awareness. Your blood travels into the vessels of your eyes. It's sort of a warrior trait. Your vision becomes stronger. You get aggressive looking. I can see where this might scare somebody. The Klansman, aka Bigfoot, also has this trait and can bring it on at will. You must be a very special person. Know that you are not alone. You're right, though. You should definitely write these details down and send them to Steve so he can share them with the others. Sunshine. You do have a lot of questions, laugh out loud, but that's okay. That's why I'm here. I hope to answer some. I do not know my role on this earth or why I have the ability to live so long. Am I really immortal if I age a little every century? I don't know, but after this much time, it does feel like I am. As for other special abilities, I don't know. It might be primal, but I found myself and the other immortals are drawn to each other and can sense each other's feelings more than normal people. I would say I am pretty strong and agile for my age. That's meant to be a joke. I get it. Over 500, right? But I really am. I found that while I can be injured and hurt, I do heal a little bit faster than normal, just not like you see on TV, and my injuries heal with very little scarring, if any. As for the Cold War, I was recruited by a group of people with different skills and backgrounds, backed by a government, to sneak in and obtain information to help end the war. You might say sort of a spy. My part was to get them in and out undetected. It was both horrifying and exciting, but mostly it was rewarding. The people I was with gathered intel I was not privy to. Our job was to gather in, deliver, and walk away, period. So I appreciate your skepticism, as the truth was never unveiled by blind trust alone. Cabal. I see your name and face a lot on the comments from Steve's stories. You appear to be a very intelligent man with an endless thirst for knowledge of the known and unknown. I can see why you and Steve share a bond. By the way, I believe you are referring to Cartaphilus, the shoemaker, also known as the Wandering Jew, cursed to wander the earth until the second coming as a penance for mocking Jesus as he was to be crucified. This is just a guess because there are others. As for other cryptids, speaking from my own experience, it is a definitive yes, there are. Some we all know about and heard of. Others have yet to be found or mentioned. There are some that we think we know. There are actually just common folklore, at least in my opinion. I don't tend to rule things out without seeing it for myself. I can assure you I am not a vampire, although they are the only other ones that I know of that are immortal. I've known one personally for over 200 years. He's not a bloodthirsty killer, although there was a time he did some things that were unspeakable to his regret. But he has changed and found new ways to survive. I too love horror movies, especially the early ones. My favorite is Frankenstein, the original, and the one with Gene Wilder and Marty Feldman, Young Frankenstein. Two of the funniest people I've ever met. I think I might watch that tonight. So keep searching, Cabal 313. They are out there and up there. That's cool. Thanks, Raven. Appreciate you doing that. I believe one of the comments somewhere, someone asked about my organs and how I make a living. First, about the organ, I've never been to a doctor or had a physical. I believe my organs are fine. I admit I have smoked on and off, but never regularly, so I don't consider it a habit. I have drank alcohol before occasionally throughout my years. Lately, I prefer just a simple glass of wine. As for my finances, to be honest, I've learned a lot through the years, and I made most of my money dealing in antiques and artwork. No, I am not an art thief. I learned how to deal in the stock market early on and made some good investments. I guess I do well. Finally, to Patrick. I can assure you I have no ill intentions for Claire, Eva, or even Wendy. I am not that person. It is only my intention to get to know them, possibly help them, and possibly learn more about myself. I appreciate your concern. I too would warn them to use caution when meeting with anybody. Steve, I'm sure this is getting a bit long. I hope this message is welcome and I haven't taken too much of your time. I do appreciate this, and it is nice to talk and share some of these stories. I have several more. In fact, I do have a friend that's also been around for a long time. Her story is a tale that is sort of twisted through time. I'm certain she is older than me. I'll speak with her and see if she'd be willing to share any of these stories with you. Anyway, Best regards to you and your TAS family. I hope you are all well and have a very Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Yours truly, Raven. Wow. All right, you guys. I can't wait to see the comments around this. I mean, that was great. That was some great information. What a life. I mean, how interesting is that? Yes, Raven, we definitely want more stories. I would love to hear more about your life and your experiences and what you've seen. You hinted to cryptids there, so that you definitive yes. So I would love to hear more about that. I'm sure everybody else would as well. Anyway, that concludes this one. And I just appreciate you guys coming and joining me here today. Don't forget to leave a comment. And if you've enjoyed this story and you're new to the channel, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming episodes. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you again really soon.